Hi, thanks for the organizer. And I'm Guo-Yan Wang from University of Science and Technology of China. And this year I've been a visiting scholar in Manchester University and a colleague of David Kirby. and here I'm very glad to share my practice and investigation on the image of cutting-edge science as cover stories. And when we talk about cover image about academic journal and scientific journals, and this kind of style may come to our mind. It's very in academic style, and it's very common. But there are still some top scientific journals, and they have very interesting, attractive, colorful cover image, such as Nature, Science, and Style. And these three journals are often called CNS journal and mentioned together as CNS journal. And they have developed into an art style, which shows the creativity and beauty of science, presenting the core scientific results, telling a story of a related article. So the image on the cover is often called cover story. The cover story image are often submitted by a research team themselves. They are not created, most of them are not created by the journal editor, even art editor are not created by themselves, but by the team and research team themselves and created by some artists. Well, the cover of a journal are just like a face of human. If it's an interesting, beautiful face, we are more eager to read. Just like this two difference. A new Stand Seal analysis reveals that the major factors influencing magazines' circulation and the content, they count for only 10%, the title and the reputation for 15%, and the cover design have a very high factors, about more than half. And when we look back of the history of image on CNS journals, we can find that on science, which is began from 1959, it's very early, and the first cover image appeared at that time, but it's black and white. And in 1975, it comes to the first colorful image on the cover. And as to Cell, it began the first cover image from 1974, and the first colorful image on Cell began on 1978. And Nature just began its image on cover story from 2001. As Heidegger predicted in 1938 that there will be an age of the word picture someday. And now we have already entered the era of visual culture. And from the history of CNS and some other scientific journal covers, we can find that it's mostly probably began from 1970s that we developed into a reading picture area. And the theory of scientific visualization can come from two different disciplines. One is computer science, the other is social science. It was in 1987 that the concept of visualization was formally put forward for the first time in a report of American National Science Foundation. And they said that visualization can help to understand the complex data and find some clue of science. And even now, scientific visualization is still considered to be a branch of computer graphics. And at the same time, in 1980s, scholars from sociology of scientific knowledge gradually got interest into scientific graph. In 2004, the concept of knowledge visualization developed from scientific computing visualization, data visualization, and information visualization. Knowledge visualization is focused on visual representation in knowledge, innovation, and communication. And it's said that scientific visualization has a history maybe as long as science itself. And there's a legend that when Archimedes was killed by Aeschylus, he was drawing geometry figures and graphs on the sand. And now in the image reading area, most of our information comes from what we can see from our eye. And just a little % of information comes from what we can hear, we can touch, we can smell, and taste. And science can help to extend our vision. We can use telescope, microscope, infrared, and even medical imaging, medical mapping, and other technology, so that we can see from a micro world to a macro world. And science can also help to transform different senses into vision. And there are quite a few scientific visualization challenges all over the world. The National Science Foundation and the AAAS Journal, that's a whole hoster of science, as you know. They hold the International Science and Engineering Visualization Challenge. This competition recognizes people who use visual media, illustrations, photographs, games, and even videos to promote the public understanding of scientific research. And there are Science as Art challenge held by the USA's Materials Research Society and the Northwestern University. They have a competition named Capturing the Beauty of Science. Well, we can find a lot of image, not only from the cover of the scientific journals, but also from the inside of the paper, and even the website of the journals themselves. When we look at the website of Nature and Science, we can find lots of images and even some videos, animations. Nature and Science are more likely to be called popular science journals rather than more academic journals, which are the original sources of big science and technology news in the world. To the public, the frontier science can satisfy their curiosity, can change and affect the future of social life. So the cutting-edge science result are often worthy of spread as scientific news. And here we analyzed the scientific news image of the world top 10 scientific breakthrough in the past 10 years, which come from the Journal of Science, Times, News and Scientist, and Scientific American. That totally 408 samples. And we can find the phenomenon that the data shows that most of the news image are in science, art, and photos, the majority, yeah. But even though there are also 8% of the news image, they only use figures in the article. That's academic image, which is not easy to be read by the public. And there are still 2% of the news, they don't use any image at all. The academic image may be suitable in academia, but it's not suitable for a news picture because we now know that the scientists may concern more about reason and logic, but to the public, they are more concerned about the aesthetic and emotional responses. And some of the top scientific news often come from Nature, Science, and Cell, even as a cover story of these journals. Here we show the most influenced scientific breakthrough in 2012, the golden particle, which may be a scientific news all over the world at that time. And we can find that the author have created a series of images to show their scientific results. As shown here, there are 4. But unfortunately, none of them was chosen as a cover story of science. So it's very interesting that when I have created some images for Nature, Science, and Cell, I often receive the editor, and they suggested that the artistic effect is priority than science when they ask the authors to submit a potential cover image. And the journals may maintain a whole style for their covers, and the author's image must fit the style. So even though maybe your research is very interesting, very important, you should have an image as attractive. And after 30 years of the scientific visualization, we find that the 5 W elements are changed in the past years. For who, the original meaning are just scientists themselves, and now they are scientists and artists together. This word from scientific data and information and computing are now turned into scientific knowledge, ideas, and even beauty of science. To whom isn't just from academia to science and public, scientist and science public, and in which channel from a professional academic field turned into both academic fields and cross-discipline and even mass media. With what effect the original meaning is to promote scientific research, and now it's both scientific research and science communication. And here I'd like to introduce an outstanding person in scientific visualization. That's Wang and his clear science. Wang has already created a lot of cover image on Cell, Science, and other top scientific journals. Not only this, but also he has already written a lot of articles about scientific visualization, which was published on Nature Methods. Even some corporations and some companies, such as Getty Images and Corbis, the 2 huge international commercial photo agencies, they provide the largest number of cover images for scientific journals. And as we can see, when it's chosen as cover story, we can only see one image. But behind that, there's often lots of different creation. Okay. And this one is about experimental verification of quantum wave particle duality. I created these images for academic and Guo-Yan Wang. We submit 5 different versions. And finally, the second one, from the left, the second one was chosen as a cover story image and published on Nature Photonics. The meaning of this image is to show in Chinese traditional philosophy, the Taiji diagram implies everything is the opposite and complementary duality. So here, the transparent crystal ball represents the photon. The sparks through the photon represent what we are studying, and what we are doing is a meaningful research. And the shadow represents our finding in the experiment. Okay. And here is another creation about Sabnam Roman mapping. It's for our headmaster of our USTC, whose paper was accepted by Nature. And we created several pictures, images for that. And the right one was published on the website of Nature. But as it's very interesting that most Chinese people, they like the left one. It's a Chinese style, it's a jade style. But the Western people prefer the right one. It's interesting. And for quantum cooling, we have created demon-like a cartoon, and they are used as scientific news images, finally. So we can find a lot of images. They show a research object, as shown here, some in nano size and some in normal size, and some maybe in very big size. And here, the cover image of Nature shows the potato genome sequence. Interestingly, they have created 2 different versions, but the right one is not chosen. I think just maybe because it looks not like potato peels, but like apple. And we can also find many DNA structure on the cover. And some of the image may show data visualization, as shown here, the word cloud, the trace data of asteroid, and the cosmic web. As a cosmic web, it's a winner in the International Science and Engineering Visualization Challenge, as shown here. But for a data visualization, it may have no color at all. So the artist renders them in a very attractive color, as shown here. In the past hundreds of years, the papers published all over the world increased rapidly, as shown by the Google Scholar. And also, we find that in the past 20 years, there's a rapid increase trend in Chinese top papers, such as Nature, Science, and Cell. So there's a demand of visual expression, which is expanded. And here, we analyzed the citation of cover story papers and the normal papers inside Nature, Science, and Cell, and to see that whether there's difference or not. And interestingly, we find that the cover story and average citation is much higher, more than twice times as the normal citation of the papers inside, so which is very interesting. And this suggests two possible explanations. And the first one is that the editorial team, in choosing the cover story, they showed their excellent judgment about the most significant paper. And the second explanation may be that the frequent citation of the article could have also been caused by the alert to its value provided by its appearance as a cover story. And also that the image used on the cover could attract academic attention to the paper. But these explanations are not mutually exclusive. There may be other explanations. And here we show the top 10 countries on CNS papers in recent 5 years. And the paper published on CNS journals showed a dominance of the USA and Western Europe. They are recognized as global hubs of scientific activity. However, a nation that is successful in prestige publications is not necessarily successful in cover stories. While the USA have a cover story rate of twice the average, the UK has a below average score of the cover stories. Canada also does not so good in cover stories, while Switzerland at 8th place, with a small scientific output, is the second highest achiever of cover stories. Here we show different institutions, and most of them may come from the universities from USA and UK. And we also try to find out the difference between top journals and common journals, whether they have changing cover image related to their contents. So here we analyzed all the journal covers with high impact factors in Journal Citation Reports, that's JCR database, and all scientific journals in the National Library of China. The top 20 journals in JCR database were selected by their 5-year impact factor. The data shows that the top journals are more likely to have changing cover images than the common journals. So here we can find that for the top journals, the average is 45%, and for the common journals, they are much lower, only 27%. And there are also, okay, no problem, obvious differences in various disciplines. Both kinds of journals show that biology, environment, chemistry, physics, and engineering technology are higher, while mathematics and geography, astronomy, agriculture science are lower. Basically, the differences in visualization among different disciplines can be understood as their difference in correlation with the material world. Furthermore, visual expression is one of the substance, the attribute, and the relationship, which are the basic concepts of natural sciences. And we can easily find that mathematics, even they are most difficult to be visualized, there are even beautiful science mathematics, such as the golden ratio and the fractal calculus. So science and art, like two sides of a coin, two wings of a bird, is very close to each other. It's very interesting that we can find by what frequency on Google Books. And since 1970s, science and art are getting closer and closer. And it's very interesting that Mr. Maxwell changed his 5 needs theory into 7 needs. And he added the aesthetic needs, the cognitive needs. So seeking knowledge and aesthetic are not only the initial demands of human beings, but also the original motive power for scientists to explore the unknown world. And philosophy is like a pendulum. It swings back and forth between science and art. It becomes sensitive when close to art. It becomes rigid and serious when become close to science. And that's what we can see here. And that's all. Thank you.